Protagonists. Adam Daly is a 16-year-old high school student. He's a teenage boy, is the son of a police captain and a pilot. Adam has his own ultralight that becomes a very key component in their survival after the discovery of the new civilization in the city. Adam is definitely brave, there's no question about that. Throughout the novel, he is constantly standing up and fighting for the people that he loves and the neighborhood he lives in, no matter how scared he is. Adam's best friend is Todd, but their character traits are very different. Adam is a loving, caring, courageous man, whereas Todd is a much more outgoing and energetic one. Adam Daly would be considered the main protagonist of this story. Herb is an almost 70-year-old retired government agent of some kind. Herb lives next door to Adam and his family and proves himself to be a major, if not the very key to their survival. He seems to know a lot about the situation they are in and how to handle it, which tells readers that he has most likely been in this type of situation previously in his life. Herb is almost like the old wise owl of the town, as he proves to be a very wise and noble man who cares for his people. Herb is a very mysterious character, as we don't really know anything about his past, nor does he tell us throughout the story. Herb's main character trait would definitely be courage. He understands what it takes to survive, and he's willing to sacrifice what it takes to make it through the tough times. He's tough. Herb is not afraid of getting hurt or hurting others if he has to. He knows that life is going to be rough, but he also knows that tough times don't last. Tough people do. In this novel, Herb will be considered a secondary protagonist, as there are more than one throughout the story. There are many other characters in this novel that may not be the main protagonist, but definitely still need to be mentioned. These secondary protagonists would include Lori Peterson, who is a 16-year-old farm girl, daughter of Stan Peterson and girlfriend of Adam Daly. Kate Daly, who is the police chief of their neighborhood, Adam Daly's mom, and mother of Danny and Rachel. Stan Peterson, who is Lori's father and the owner of the Peterson farm, which becomes a key component in the sustainability of Eden Mills. And lastly, Howie and Brett. Howie and Brett are both police officers who provide security and bravery throughout the novel. Antagonists. In this novel, there isn't really an antagonist, because instead of a person versus person conflict, Adam and the rest of the protagonists fight against society, which means that if there were an antagonist, it would be considered society as a whole instead of one main character. Setting. This novel is set in the fictional town of Eden Mills, Ontario. We know that the town has a local mini mall that lies outside of their neighborhood, but still relatively close, and we know that it has around 1,500 people in it, which gives us a pretty good idea of its size. As far as time goes, this novel would be set in present day, which we can clearly prove by simply pointing out the modern technology they have. This book has a very dreary and dangerous tone. We get this dreary feeling while reading The Rule of Three, perhaps because of the loss of power, which would give the novel sort of a slower tempo. Without power, the town shut down and became a ghost town, but full of people. Eric Walter's diction is very short and simple, which in my opinion enhances this sort of dreary, dangerous mood. The mood is dangerous simply because of the events that happen in the novel. Throughout the novel, characters state that they are afraid or have an uneasy feeling frequently, which again proves these two tones/moods. The author of this novel, Eric Walters, actually used his own town as inspiration for the fictional town of Eden Mills in the novel. The red dot on the map points to the location that is meant to represent Adam Daly's home in the novel. This is very helpful to readers because it enhances how we perceive the story based on the actual layout of his town. Conflict. It is no question at all as to what the main conflict of this novel is. The main conflict is person versus society, and is between Adam and the rest of the world. Since the very early stages of the novel, the conflict of the mass power virus is visible, as in we know the conflict of the novel by the time the first chapter ends. However, it is not only the protagonists fighting against their basic loss of power, but also them facing the growing tension and violence from others. This would be why the conflict is person versus society, because their main enemy becomes the other people instead of the loss of power. So as we already know, the crisis is the single moment in the story where things take a turn for the worse for the main characters. Now in this novel specifically, it was a little difficult to identify the crisis from the conflict, but the single crisis can be identified as the initial power outage in the world. This is the crisis because it is definitely a turning point in the story, and also because without it the rest of the story would not happen. Therefore, the plot in the novel in general would be nothing. The climax of a novel is defined as the most exciting, intense, and important part of the plot. In this novel, the climax lies very close to the end of the book, and is the point when Herb and Adam cause the last explosion on the bridge, causing it to fall to the ground, symbolizing the destruction of their enemies. Quote unquote, "Come on," I said. "They're all on the bridge now. Don't wait any longer." The bridge is gone, and everybody who was on the bridge is gone with it. This point, which is the climax, pans out across 5 pages and ends the final destruction of both the bridge and their enemies. However, we already know that this book is part of a trilogy, and the end of the book verifies that there is more to the story when it ends with the words, "We are safe, at least for today." Theme. The theme of the novel, The Rule of Three by Eric Walters, is that the exterior situations people are in affects their actions and moral decisions. This basically means that the situations people are in changes who they are and influences what they do. This is proved by Herb's words in pages 39 to 40 in the novel. Don't be surprised. Situational ethics can take root in a very short time. It's simple. The way people act, what they believe is wrong or unethical, changes because of the situation. The situation set the stage for their action, provided the fuel. Walters, page 39 to 40. This theme is represented many times throughout the novel. For example, the rioting at the mall, the mob at the pool supply store, and the raid on the Peterson farm. These are just a few examples of the appearances of situational ethics throughout the novel. Overall, I would say that I enjoyed this book, but not extremely. I found it progressed slowly and ended with nothing. However, as far as the meanings and themes and the overall basis of the novel, I like the idea. I think it was an interesting topic and a very interesting book, regardless of its lack of excitement. I agree with the themes put forward. The idea of situational ethics almost reminds me of adrenaline, but for the brain, as in, instead of gaining energy or strength from adrenaline and blood movement, you begin to make rational decisions and do things you never would/should have done. In the end, I would recommend the read to others, and seeing as it is a trilogy, I imagine the other books will enhance this one greatly, which means my judgment of the original may become different after reading the sequels. But as of now, I would have to say that this book did leave me a little unsatisfied. But then again, I am interested in reading the others, which I guess is the overall goal of a novel.